Good evening. I am Providence City. One PM. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairwoman Helen D'Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Juan Pichardo,
Present.
Deputy City Solicitor, who is online this evening. Thank you for attending. We also have Auditor Gina Costa, and we have Donna Polesian, Second Deputy Clerk, and Julie Polanco, our Assistant Clerk. Madam Clerk, kindly read agenda item number 1 into the record.
Item number 1, resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-26B1 of the Code of Ordinances. Agostini Constructions, IEC, Department of Public Property, $32,603,700.
Thank you. Who do we have presenting this evening?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Jonathan Martin, Deputy or Director of Public Property. Deputy Director Amanda Pontarelli with me, and Mr. Joe DeSanti, our owner's project manager for Downs Construction, will be joining me.
Wonderful. Please swear them in.
Hopefully at the same time. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and nothing but
I do.
each one of you can state your name for the record.
Jonathan Robert Martin.
Amanda Pontarelli.
Joseph DeSanti.
Thank you. And for our committee members. Hold on 1 minute. So I've just been given the classical high school renovation project owners project manager update January 17th, 2023. It's a presentation, and I'd like to mark this as exhibit 1. May I have a motion?
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Councilor Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll turn it over to Mr. DeSanti, the owner's project manager. He has significant background with this project to run through the presentation, and we'll all be prepared to answer questions.
Thank you. Proceed.
Madam Chair, I did put together a brief presentation just to give you a little bit of background, and then certainly can answer questions as we go through. So on the overview, I just wanted to give you a little background. The classical high school project has been going through the design process in 2020 and 2022. That process actually went slower just because of COVID, and also during the process, we discovered some additional work that needs to be done there. So the classical high school project is going to be a major renovation of almost all the classrooms except for the science wing that was previously done, a new security vestibule, a new media center, and life safety upgrades. But we determined during that process that the girls' locker room had not been used in years. It was really pretty much abandoned. And we added that to the scope of work, as well as during COVID, we also discovered that the nurse's office was in really poor condition, and they actually couldn't even treat kids, and there was really no place to see the children, or even to move well children away from the not so well children. So that was added scope that also was done through the process. So fast forward in the summer of 2022, we did do a swing space construction project there. So we took the existing library, which was converted into swing space. So this project is probably the most complex project that we have underway right now. And currently we have 7 other projects underway at the total of about $180 million in the next 18 months that we'll be accomplishing. And most of those projects are new, or like the Narducci Center has been a full renovation. But this one is complex because it is going to be done while the kids occupy the building, And it's very complex because we have to maintain safe distance from the children, obviously, and the construction, and we only can do little pieces of it. And that kind of plays into, how we bid the project out as well as what we got for bid responses. So, in August 29th, we did get approval from the Board of Contracts to issue the RFP. We did have a mandatory pre-bid walkthrough there on the 7th of September. We did have 4 bidders that signed in, 4 contractors signed in. And October 24th, we did receive only 1 bid and made a recommendation to award on 12/8/22. Now, we did go back and check. We had 47 contractors download and review the bid net notice. And of those 47 contractors, we've identified at least 11 of them were major contractors that would have bid the job, large contractors that would have done the project. So the next page, the 3rd page, just gives you a brief narrative of what I talked about the media center. But if you look at the left side of the page, the green shows like one of the first phases we're going to do. Well, the school maintains the areas in the not shaded white in the white areas. And this happens throughout the course of the next 2 years. So we'll finish that green space and then the kids will go back and occupy that and then move over to the next space. So we're kind of hopscotching along and doing it in little bits and pieces. So with that, you really need only a select few of contractors really going to be interested in doing this work anyway, because you are working in an occupied building. As well as now with, there seems to be more than enough work out there. We have contractors that are struggling with just the resources to finish those projects. We went back as part of the vetting process and talked to the bidders that did not bid and asked why. One of them bid Pleasant View and said, I decided on which project I was going to bid on, and I decided to put all my emphasis on Marion, because Marion Construction on Pleasant View. The other 2, we reached out and they said, we just did not have the resources to be able to do the work and do it within that schedule of time. Part of the vetting process, we did ask that question. We asked, is the complexity of the project, did that play into it? And they said, absolutely it did. So, after we did our vetting and did our recommendation to award, and the project is actually within the budget, the bid we received from Agostini is within our budget. We felt that it was the right path forward, and again, that project has been delayed for a while. We wanted to just get it moving at this point. With cost escalation, we continue to see the prices increase. The contract was fully vetted out. That firm actually is working on another project in town. That project is coming along very well, and it's on schedule and on budget. And they have agreed and have guaranteed that they're going to have the resources available to complete our project on schedule as well. And the last slide I just showed you, gave you a couple of pictures of what it's going to look like when it's done. The new media center is the one on the right, and the new classroom, an example of the classrooms on the left side.
Wonderful. Committee members, does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You're Mr. DeSantis, correct?
Yes, I am.
So you oversee the projects, correct?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that for me and so forth. In terms of the outside, is there going to be some lighting to enhance the building, especially during the night, and for safety reasons in particular in that campus?
Yeah, unfortunately not as part of this project right now. This is dealing with and focused more on the inside of the building, but it's a very good point. It's conversations we're having right now about exterior lighting and exterior improvements. If you've been to that parking lot, for example, and the stairs are deteriorated, those things right now are not included. But because we're within the budget, we might actually have some savings that might allow us to do some additional work outside, but we're also discussing it with PPSD about what else they could do with some of their additional funding to be able to do that, or do it as a future project. But to your point, Counselor, we need some additional safety, security measures outside with lighting, as well as just maintaining that site, because the stairs and some of the pavement is deteriorated.
Well, they're almost been going there for many years. My kids, my last one attends classical, so I know what you're referring to. And I talk about the lighting because throughout the years, all these buildings, especially when it gets dark at 4 o'clock, 4:15, it is pitch black. Not so much classical, but in other schools. Stewart, Roger Williams, etc. So I think it's something that, as you're planning ahead, but I think that these buildings need enhanced lighting, like hotels do, right? Those that illuminated move up and down, so, but it's also a safety concern. My next question
Yes. go right
is
ahead.
in reference to while doing construction there, do the workers also go through the process of making sure that those who are in construction, that they don't have any other type of, do they go through a background check?
Yes, so yes, they are required to do a background check on any employee that would come to any worker to come to the site. And part of our plan is also to have a separation between the workers and students, especially during school hours. But there will be occasions where someone has to go through and be escorted through. But any worker that does go on site will have a background check.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Yes, Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank you for coming in today and providing this graphic presentation. I'm a very hands-on learner, so I definitely appreciate that. Just going back a couple of steps, can you just define Downs Construction's relationship with the city?
Sure, that's actually a very good question. So I am the Director of Program Management for Downs Construction. Downs is hired as the city's owner's project manager to oversee the school reconstruction program. So we have an arm's length relationship where we are tasked with what has been identified in the 2019 MOA and the 2022 MOA with a list of schools. So our responsibility is to make sure that the dollars are spent correctly, right? As well as identifying which projects, working through the building committee and ensuring that we are utilizing the right dollars and doing the right scope of work as well.
Yes, I mean, I just have like questions like, so from my understanding from the last meeting, so you guys completely come up with all the different RFPs and all the different bidders, you vet those, or what's that process like?
So that process is actually a little bit more detailed. So we do draft the initial RFP, and it's something that has been vetted out, that we worked with Nick originally in procurement and actually with the outside West Group Law, which is a consultant to Corp Counsel. They have reviewed or review our RFPs as well as they review the contracts as well. Once we do that, we issue it out. We make sure that we have sign-in sheets, we have mandatory pre-bids. If there's any addendums issued, they're formal and in writing. And then when the bids come in, we do a formal scope review of the bid process. So in other words, we will, if there's 2 or 3 bidders and we think we need to interview all 3, we will do that. Now, up until recently, and I said recently, in the last 6 months, a lot of that was actually done through Zoom, right? So we would record them as well. The city would be involved in those meetings. Sometimes we would ask the architect if they were part of the team too to sit in just so they could hear what the construction team might be saying. And then sometimes when it was just the architect, we've done RFPs for architects as well. Sometimes we'll ask somebody else within the city to be involved. So yes, we would lead that team, but it's also in conjunction with public properties as well as purchasing. I know Alejandro has sat in on some of those scope review meetings as well, just to listen in.
Thank you.
Counselor Sanchez, more questions, go ahead.
It just ties into the conversation. What was I gonna ask now? Let me come back.
Okay,
I had something.
other questions from committee members? Yes,
Can you,
Madam Auditor.
who was on the building committee?
Who is on the building committee? I give you the list. I can't think offhand. I mean,
Is it city employees, school employees, or a combination?
yeah, it's both.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a list of who's on that. There's some councilors that are part of that committee too. There's-
City councilors?
Yes.
I think I'd just like to clarify that. I'm not sure that we've had regular attendance from the council members, but I think that's going to be changing, starting with the meeting next week. I believe. So I'm very excited that we will have some consistent representation and also a mechanism to report back. Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you. Just a quick question. What's your contract with the city like? Is it like based on projects, or I know you mentioned something about 2019, 2022, like what does that entail?
Yep, so our contract was based on a response to an RFP.
Mhm.
That RFP had the 2019 MOA projects, so it was a list of all the projects. We said, these are the projects we want to get accomplished. And our fee was based on what those projects are. And it's basically, we charge you for our time, right? So if we're working on a classical project and you have a project manager there and the director there, then that's the time. So there's an amount of money and we project every month and bill for that.
Thank you.
So it's not a fee based
Yeah.
or anything like that. It's our time, whatever you need us to do. And that's why we, work with you on these kind of things. There's no extra fee for that.
Thank you.
Councilor Pichardo.
So the company that was awarded is Agostini Construction, correct?
Correct.
Sorry.
It is your goal to try to get the project completed on time and under budget. Is there an incentive if those things are met or even before? And also, what is the percentage of allowed overage of the RFP?
So I'm gonna try to answer that in order here.
Okay.
There's no incentive. There are sometimes shared savings clause within contracts. One of the things that we have been doing recently, and not on this project, is we follow what's called a design build. So the Narducci projects and the Spaziano projects are design build, where we actually put an RFP out and we have the architect and construction manager form a partnership and respond. That's probably one of the most cost-effective way of doing it. But we do not allow for incentives. So in other words, if they save us money, which is what they should be doing anyways, they don't reap the rewards of that saving. They're just doing their job that we're asking them to do. So there's no savings clause in there. We have to date have not issued any change orders to any of the projects that we have under construction right now. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but we've been doing a very good job about managing it, even in this inflation, cost escalation environment. We've been able to continue to manage that process. So schedule-wise, it's been difficult, but even that we've been able to maintain it. I mean, we are still seeing items that we're struggling to get because they're just not in the market, whether it's electrical equipment or generators or those kind of things.
Yes, please continue.
On another note is, do you play a role in deciding the determination of school closings in terms of the structure and cost and et cetera?
My initial answer is no. The only thing that potentially would play a role as your consultant to the city is that we have been asked just recently to prepare a facilities condition analysis, right? So which is the 2017 Jacobs report that you'll hear people talk about as well. So in that condition assessment, we did rate the buildings at that point. Now, typically, and I'm not sure, we don't play a role in determining which schools should be consolidated, closed, whatever word you want to use. But they would use that report and say, okay, the condition of a project has deteriorated more or it's gotten better. I would expect someone to use that as part of their criteria for determining that. But a direct role, we would not play a direct role in anything to do with the school district, how they run their schools or what schools would be closed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Certainly. Any more questions from the committee members? I'd like to follow up on a few, if I may. So the list of projects currently, I'm sorry, you gave me the total amount of expenditures for those.
Yeah, it's approximately $180 million right now.
Okay. And that list, how is that constructed, that list of projects?
So there's two places, and actually there is on the city website, there is a link to the school construction projects, and that'll show you what those active projects are right now. I could just tell you briefly what they are. if you would like.
Thank you.
So Narducci Learning Center, William Debate Elementary School, Frank D. Spaziano Elementary School, Hope High School, Essex Hopkins Middle School, Nathaniel Green Middle School, Pleasant View Elementary School, Classical High School projects are all part of the 2019 and are currently in some form of construction. And then on the 2022 MOA projects, we have the Frank D. Spaziano Middle School, which is in design right now, the Kazarian Elementary School, which is in design right now, and potentially right now, it looks like the Mary E. Fogarty Elementary School will be in design in the near future in lieu of P Street.
Thank you. And just for clarification, MOA is,
Memorandum of Agreement is the RIDE letter that we get that says you could do these projects and we will reimburse you. 82% with a potential of 91%.
and then you just referred to a facilities assessment report. When was that done?
That was done over the last couple of months.
And is that on the website?
That is not, it's in draft format right now, and it'll be probably formalized and we can upload it to the part of the website in the next week, probably.
Wonderful. So we'll be able to see that on the website within the
Yes.
next week. Wonderful. That's great.
Yeah, and that's a document that just speaks to the facts of what the condition of the building is.
And who did the assessment?
Down construction did. Yeah, we did an update based on the 2017 Jacobs report, and then there was another supplemental report that was done afterwards, and we updated it afterwards.
And just a couple of questions. A few more questions. Any more projects? Is this it for classical in terms of what's being proposed?
Yeah, for right now, except for what the council said, we're certainly trying to push to have some of those outside exterior things done as well.
Great. That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have a website that you provide all these reports, or is just provided in the city
It's provided in the city.
for the company?
Yeah, we try not to do it through we're willing to do it if you would like, but I think that previously Director Roberts, who was predecessor here, actually wanted it at the city, and we created a website for that.
And I will ask, what is that? So it was a very good website. I think that was done by your predecessor. Can you just describe that to the new council people and how to access that?
You have
Yeah, so I could, we could get you the access. So it's just a high level identification of what the projects are. It'll list all these projects and what the budget is and the target completion date is on as well. And there was also a link to a more detailed project schedule that shows all of the projects, where they are, if they're inactive, under design, in construction, or completed, because previously we did complete a number of projects. We did some roof projects, some other things last year. And we could make sure that the council has that link. I know that we need to sit down and update that. That's one of the things that is on our list.
Just to follow up on that, I'm sorry, I'm on the, so it's City of Providence, and we should be accessing it through never an easy process, public property, or how are we accessing that?
I'm trying to remember where it was. I had it on me. I think I took the link off.
I'm just asking because it's always a little difficult to navigate, so it'd be nice to know if it's under a certain department or school facilities, or I don't know how.
If it's acceptable, Madam Chair, I'll submit the link tomorrow and with instructions for how to get there. And we'll circle back and confirm that it's a logical process, easy to find for yourself, for the council and the citizens of Providence.
Please, thank you. Yes, go ahead. Councilor Randall.
Just a super quick question. You mentioned at the beginning that this was a challenging one to bid because it was happening during the school year while the kids were in session. Are any of the other ones happening? Any of those other, however many projects, I don't know if that's for us, happening while kids are in session, or are those mostly happening during breaks and in summer?
They're either like the Bay has been moved over in their swing space,
Okay.
the new Spaziano, the Spazianics So no, the answer is no. The only other one that we were originally thinking about was Pleasant View, but based on the population of the special needs there, there's a high population of special needs kids there. It was going to be too difficult to maintain and be concerned about anything to do with construction. So that building now, we're going to wait till it gets vacated. They're actually going to swing into Narducci. They're going to be the first school to go in there. We're going to vacate all of Pleasant View, then go in there. So classical is the only one right now that we are doing as an occupied building. There's really no other choice on that project just because of the complexity and the need for that high school.
Yeah, thank you.
And I believe full high.
Yeah,
Being done.
yeah, and hope it, that's right. I apologize. Hope is, but we're doing just like the auditorium, so we're not really impacting the classrooms. It's the auditorium and the surrounding areas, but you're correct. Madam Chair.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'd like to entertain a motion.
Make the motion
To approve.
to approve.
As the resolution is written.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have the motion made by Councilor Pichardo, seconded by Councilor Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you kindly read agenda item 2?
Item number 2, communication from Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer, and Sarah Silveria, Finance Director, dated September 30, 2022, submitting 5-year budget projections of the revenues and expenditure projections for fiscal years 2024 through 2028, pursuant to ordinance number 388, chapter 2011-22.
Madam Clerk, would you swear in our presenter?
Please raise your right hand. You swear against penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth. Please state your names for the record.
Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer, City of Providence.
Sarah, Crystal Lindbergh, Deputy Finance Director, and Budget Officer.
We have the entertain this evening, so thank you so much for coming in to present this evening. And we just received a handout, and I think it's just a blow up of what we already have in our, and I so appreciate it because I could not really do what was online, so I appreciate it. So, Mr. Mancini, would you like to start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to join you and the members this evening with my esteemed colleagues, Ms. Silveria, the Finance Director, and Ms. Lindbergh as the Deputy. This too is the inaugural meeting for the Finance team before this first meeting of the Finance Committee as we're being interviewed. So the matter before you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, is a report that is filed by state statutes required to be filed within 30 days of the adopted budget. Last year, the 2023 budget was adopted on June 24th. This report was due by July 25th, which we did meet that in a timely fashion, as we always do. And it was submitted to the clerk and council for scheduling for the discussion. With the August recess and following that, the matter was filed by the clerk to the council finance committee in September 30th, and has not been reviewed since that time by the council. I believe your internal order in a matter of clearing all matters from the prior year has put it on the docket. This item, ladies and gentlemen, is a matter for discussion and presentation. I will say for the record, and discussed this with the chair just before the meeting, that the information was culled and compiled and published now some 6 months ago. So although it's a 5-year projection, and some things could have changed given the conditions of the economy, it is a report that is only done once a year. It's done post adoption of the budget. Any changes to these projections will be done on an updated basis, particularly now that we're in budget season for fiscal 24. We'll be seeing that in those discussions. But for the record, I wanted to be clear that this is a report that was actually created sometime in June and filed with the state in July, published. So with that, this is a solid report that covers the major aspects of the city budget and is expected to provide forecast on a 5-year basis. So I've written to you along with my colleagues that The significant item on the revenue side, obviously, is always property taxes. It takes up 2/3 of the city's revenue regularly in any budget. Any projections that we make on property taxes, for the record, does not reflect any projection of tax rate increases. As administrators, chiefs, and directors, that is not the purview of our work. That's a decision that's made by elected officials. Any change in taxes upward represents our belief in the expansion of the tax roll based on natural expansion of tax roll, the addition to levy, either new properties, permits, or changes in value, particularly if there's a revalue. But the role of finance official is not to project a tax rate change by rate increase, if you will, merely to demonstrate, based on our knowledge and our belief, generally in a non-revalue year, we believe that the tax levy expands ordinarily by about 2% of the prior year. In a revalue year, because of the ability to raise the cap to the max, which is 4%, we do see values change in an upwardly priced market over in the real estate area, both residential and commercial. So you'll see that in the 5-year plan, your projections. December 31st of 2021 was the last rebound. It took effect for the bills that were mailed out in July of 2022 of the fiscal year budget 2023. You will not see another rebound until 3 years. That'll be December 31, 2024. For the 2025 budget, you'll note in those charts that you'll see that rise by a greater sum of the prior years, because we expect to see full increase based upon the ability to pick up additional revenue. So as I move through this narrative, and I think it's included in your packet, and I move to page 2, we talk about other aid. About 67% of the city budget is predicated on tax, all taxes. And another 1/3 comes from state aid. There are multiple components of state aid. The largest being pilot. Councilman Machado was familiar with that, having been served in the General Assembly, the State Senate, and thank you very much for the times that you supported the city budget. With all due respect, the pilot is a predominant amount of money that the city relies on. Currently, it's at 34 million. The pilot is based on those properties that are tax exempt, generally colleges, universities, and hospitals. It's based upon the total value of that property. Currently, for the current year, that value is 3.6 billion. And we receive the equivalent, if we were to receive the equivalent of that, based on the commercial rate of $36.70 per thousand, we would probably receive somewhere close to $134 million in taxes. We would not receive $134 million. Currently, based on the formula that's provided by state statute, at maximum, we receive 27% of the amount that would otherwise be available. That's true for every community we're in. So other host communities, City of Warren for the airport, City of Cranston for prison, they receive a formula predicated on the amount that's appropriated by the state general assembly. Last year, the province that was 34 million. We did receive an additional pilot consideration as a result of some of the activity in the state budget last year, but normally it's that formula that we have discussed. In addition to pilot, the other categories of state aid given to us is distressed cities. Distressed city, the province is one of the several distressed cities in Rhode Island, including Pawtucket, Central Falls, Woonsocket. And we receive it based on population, income statistics, median below income, etc. The other category of pass-through is known as Rhode Island telephone tax. It's a tax that's passed along. And then finally, what we call housing aid, which is basically based on reimbursements for school construction projects. You read previously our colleagues from public property, Mr. DeSantis, talk about construction and construction loans. Providence currently receives 82 cents on the dollar reimbursement for every approved dollar that's spent for any school project. And so while we pay the debt service, we clearly rely on the reimbursement of the revenue from the state based on that formula. In the new era of new schools and construction, Providence will be the recipient of up to 9% additional bonus points. So then on new monies, including projects that were discussed this evening by my colleagues in public property, standard, you would get upwards of 91 cents on the dollar. And that's an incredible sum of reimbursement, all things considered, significantly reducing the expense to taxpayers in the city of Providence, but significantly improving the condition and quality of the school facilities. The school facilities, as you know, is under the management of the city of Providence. Public property finance plays its role in assisting with whenever necessary and whenever possible to do the financing by putting out bond issues. The voters were kind enough just recently in November to approve the authority of another 125 million. While that has not been earmarked or dedicated as yet, it is available to be included in the conversation going forward on school financing and hence school debt construction. Those are your major categories of state aid reimbursement. I'll pause for a minute. I don't know if you have questions on that, because those are the two largest categories of revenue in any budget year, including in the out years of projections.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Randall.
First, thank you for this. This is so complete and really, really helpful. I had two questions. One is for the 125 million in the bond and any city level bonds. Who oversees the spend on that? Is that the building, like, how does that move? How does the approval process for that money move?
Good question. So normally on the conventional times, it would be managed by the Providence School Department under its auspices, including its OPM. As you've heard a lot lately, there's a school building committee. That committee will be actively under proper bylaws and organizational status that they're commencing with its January meeting. As the city CFO, I've been asked to serve on that committee, and I have attended meetings on a regular basis, and I'm looking forward to that going forward. My colleague, Mr. Martin, who is the director of public property, I believe is a member of that committee, as city officials. It has always been public property or finance designees as city officials. The remainder are generally school officials, school administrators. And while that's not included in the projections that you have before you, I was sharing that now with you as a means to let you know how that process works. So,
Yeah.
so as far as any dedicated amount or any project that will be considered, it does begin within the school system. They bring projects forward. Buildings that are noteworthy to be considered for construction or reconstruction or dedication to new facilities. Work, and I believe that goes through its own process between the school department and Rhode Island Education and the school building authority. Finances will get involved once those projects are known and the opportunity presents itself to fund and to do bond financing. Then we put our team together, outside professionals, to go through the mechanics of the bond issue to make sure that we can properly provide the financing for this.
Okay.
May I just follow up on
Sure.
that? Chief Monsignor? So the city involvement, or at least your involvement, is more once the decisions are made, but you're not involved in deciding which schools are being rehabilitated or renovated.
Not previously heretofore, but perhaps going forward in that committee, if members of the committee would be given an opportunity to weigh in on that, we probably would be asked to do so as well, but not previous to the next meeting, we have not.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, Madam Auditor.
Just for my own clarification, you said that we're going from 82% to 91%.
We could, based on bonus, let me clarify. We are at 82% standard the last decade ago. Under the incentive program, which is called New and Fuel, 21st Century Learning, those type of incentives can earn any community an additional 9% bonus points. We expect that based on the list of projects that will be coming forward and the activities that they would meet that criteria, so-called media centers and so forth. So the city could receive an additional 9% bonus points. In our reimbursement numbers, this projection is based on 82%. It
Okay,
does not reflect anything higher than 82%.
okay, so the 7.1 increase from 23 to 24 is,
Based on project completion.
thank you.
Each June 30, the city's Department of Public Property has to submit a list of completed projects that means substantially complete. When it's been vetted that it's substantially completed, it files a report with the Department of Education by July 15th. That sets in motion the reimbursement based on the appropriate percentage for the next budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Just focusing on the pilot, and especially with the nonprofit, you indicated that we get 27%.
The maximum, the formula runs from 22 to 27. Of late, the General Assembly has been authorizing the maximum reimbursement of 27%. That's correct.
In the discussion with the pilot program and also with the nonprofit organizations, where are we in that process right now? Are you able to speak to
I
that?
can a little bit. There are two parts to the pilot that you probably know, Councilman. And there is the standard formula that's reimbursed by the state of Rhode Island under the formula devised by the General Assembly. That's the 34 million. And some years ago, almost 2 decades ago, the city of Providence was able to enter into its own local pilot agreements with colleges, universities, and hospitals. In this current budget year, several of those agreements expired. And due to that expiration, we are still hopeful that before the year end is over, that we'll have the opportunity, like the mayoral administration, council administration, will have an opportunity very soon to sit down with representatives of the college and universities community and work out some negotiations we hope will be much more long-term than the current year. But with that said, we are aware that they will fully expire come June 30, 2023, which puts us in a position where those negotiations will commence sometime in the very near future.
How many properties are on the tax roll? And I mean, there's been a lot of construction, particularly one of the universities. How long do they remain, or do they remain in the tax roll?
By state law, we're required to put every property on the tax levy, and then they're coded for different purposes. So in the case of tax exempts, they receive their own bona fide tax levy code that removes them from taxation. So their values are listed on the property tax levy.
Madam Auditor?
I just want to follow up to Councilman Machado. We no longer do transitional property taxes.
We still do. We haven't had any significant filings of late, but when they do, the order was referring to as there's an opportunity to transition the exempt institutions property that's being requested in return for some other consideration in a period that transitions the taxes over a slower period of reduction so that the city gets a more fuller payment for a number of years while it whittles down to a smaller payment, and then it's fixed at whatever that last payment.
Is that an option?
It depends on what consideration is involved. As an example, when it was done on a number of occasions, there was street abandonments involved. In exchange for street abandonments, the city would do it's called public transition parcel payments.
I'm sorry, what is that called again?
Transition parcel payments.
So just for instance, I'm just going to take one of the universities, Brown. So Brown, if they purchase a property and if there's been consideration, is it like an agreement with each of the individual nonprofits? Is that what's going on?
It has to be based upon some consideration of the agreement. Generally, there's an agreement that is always surrounded by acquisition for them getting the consideration of the street abandonment or something of that sort.
Okay.
Where they would not come off the property roll immediately altogether. It would be transitioned over a number of years. I believe it's 50 years.
Okay, all right, and then those are individual agreements with each of the nonprofits.
That is correct.
Around whatever the
That
consideration
is correct. And it's by property. By property.
And how are we keeping track of those properties? I'm just asking for.
The city's tax assessor keeps an exhaustive list of properties, both taxable in the levy as well as non-taxable, including those that are considered transition parcel property.
Right. Any questions? No?
Um,
Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I missed it, when Councilman Pichardo asked, have the negotiations with those institutions, in terms of the local pilot agreement, have those started?
They will begin very shortly.
Okay. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So we move now to the other categories that we list, the high level ones, fines and forfeitures. We expect that for the 2023 budget, we budgeted only 3.5 million because we have seen a reduction in this category, and it has a lot to do with the COVID and pandemic reduction of city activity. We do think that starting in the 2024 budget, there's all indications and prospect that we will return to pre-pandemic revenues, and that will be about $4.4 million per year going forward. But the current budget is set at 3.5 million. On interest income, the city is projected to receive about 4.7 million from fiscal year 24 right through fiscal year 28. This includes interest that we collect on overdue taxes and interest on the city's general fund investments. On department revenue, there are certain departments that have revenue generally in the city. They include bureau licenses, public safety, and parking administration, and they're projected to remain stable through fiscal year 2028. Parking revenues again are expected to return to pre-pandemic levels in fiscal year 2024 at an amount equal to $4,075,000. To answer the question that's been asked by some of the councils, local pilot grants with college, universities, and hospitals are level budget for purposes of this report. And the city is in negotiations with its local institutions over current agreements due to expire in fiscal 2023. When this report was written, there were current negotiations with the prior administration. Collectively, as a group of taxpayers, they thought that with all the current administration at the time, that it would best to wait till the incoming administration, so that if there was going to be any substantive long-term agreement, it would at least start with the current mayoral and council administration. And I can confirm and assure you that those negotiations are scheduled to commence very soon.
And just for clarification, Chief Francine, what is the council's involvement in those highway negotiations?
Any agreement that's brought, that's the city enters into, will be brought before the council for their review and their approval.
Excellent.
Moving on, transfers to general fund. These are categories that are currently known as police and fire details. They will increase to, again, pre-pandemic levels in FY24 and are scheduled in our budget to stay through FY28 at a range of approximately $2,045,000 thereabouts. Another category known as Fund 283 is called rescue runs. We expect that will remain level for the fiscal year 2020. That generates about $5.2 million revenue. And the third category there is called transfers from North Burial Ground, which is generally about $260,000. But that will remain constant between 2024 and 2020. No other questions? Continue.
Yes,
Sorry.
Councilor Taylor.
I have one. Do we figure out on the rescue runs, out of town rescues, how much we're losing to the out of town rescues? coming into
Yeah,
the city?
finance has not had the assignment to do that as a standard assignment, but we certainly could assign that to public safety and have them give us that.
Just be interesting to know.
Yeah.
Well, we can transfer and buy another rescues because
We'd
they're
be
coming
happy
to
to-
our city.
Happy to compile that from public safety and share that with your town.
Okay, thank you. So in other words, if we don't have any, we only have 6 rescues. So if all the rescues are out, and God forbid something happens here right now.
Yeah.
We have to, they call it out of town rescue.
Okay.
So Cranston, East Providence, whatever they come in. I don't know what the numbers are. I believe they're pretty high. And when they come in, they charge. And the money goes to
For
them.
them, so.
So they're ended up it's like Warwick and Cranston and the rescue because of.
Thank you.
Makes the money.
Well, yeah, but I mean, then we should have another rescue.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the chief right now? All right, Councilor Anderson.
Thanks. This is just a minor thing. For the North Borough ground, is that just because they're an active graveyard or cemetery? And so
It's been a
it's the,
standard line item in the city budget forever, and that's not the reason why it's there, but based upon daily sales of burial plots.
okay,
The budget for the city of Providence, revenue from that department is fixed at $600,000 annually.
okay,
Whatever is not collected in daily burial sales plots is made up for by a transfer of other funds, so that we use the 260. If it ends up that we only need 200, that's what we transfer 200.
oh, okay,
That's how that combination is.
okay, thank you.
Councilor Sanchez.
So I just have a quick question, in terms of, the Port of Providence, revenue. Who in the city confirms that?
Finance department is in receipt of their annual financial statements. They file them annually and do those, and their revenue sources are confirmed by the finance department.
Thank you.
Councilor Turner.
Looking at the meals and tax, meals and beverage tax, going back to pre-COVID.
Correct.
Our revenues went up during COVID. Are you projecting that it would go up or?
Stable at least. One of the things that we saw, Councilman, during the last quarter of the fiscal year 2021, which happened to be the quarter that COVID shut down most of the federal, state, and local government, was the one thing that maintained stability was meals and beverages. And I think it's because people ended up doing things like such as, curbside or water out. So we never really saw a loss of revenue from the meals and beverage tax that we collect in the state of Providence.
The same thing with the room tax?
Room tax is different. I think that's the last segment of the hospitality industry that made its way back. We're hopeful that with some of the new deployments of activity, including the new agreement that was signed and approved by the council, where we attract more business and convention business. We're ever so hopeful that they'll return to the capital city, but that's the last segment of the hospitality industry, I believe, worldwide, that has made its return. And then with the new era, people go to Airbnb and other methods, but unfortunately, but we're hopeful that it will make its way back. The city has such beautiful hotels that we do hope we'll see that day return.
Please proceed.
If I may, then following that is a review of some of the expenditure assumptions, starting with salaries. The three main groups of bargaining unit activities for the city of Providence following Labor's International Union Local 1033. They currently have a 3-year contract that expires in fiscal year 2025. We are currently in the first year of that contract. That calls for a 2.5% wage increase. Years 24 and 25 will call for increases of 2.75 and 3% respectively, as Class A employees of the contract. In the old years, for the benefit manager of your committee, whenever we do projections that extend beyond the expiration of a labor contract, in fairness to that group or those groups and in dignity to their workers, we never put a zero. Nor do we put more than 1%, because if you put 3%, then that's to presume that you can afford 3%. So it's a decision that the finance team has devised over the past decade. I think your attorney Laura can speak to that. It seems to be proper. It's meant to say, we won't say zero, but that's not right either. But it could work out that way. But nor are we able to estimate what we think could end up being those negotiations. So it's meant to be a placeholder for the budget for the sake of saying, when the contract expires, let's say in the 3rd year, and there's still 2 years left on our projections, you'll see that it's a 1% stakeholder placeholder rather than a specific wage increase. Likewise, with the FOP, that contract will expire this June 30, 2023. So the 5-year plan shows a 1% state placeholder for each of those 5 years forward, because that's the method that we've chosen to use as a placeholder. Those negotiations, likewise, members of the council finance committee, they will begin very shortly as well. Those negotiations will begin very shortly. And then lastly, under the IAFF Local 789 fire contract, they are currently in a 5-year contract, expires June 30 of 2027. It calls for wage increases of 4% in each of the years of its contract. I might digress for a moment. It's important for the newly elected members of the council, or you may be aware that in the fire contract, while it was a 5-year contract and they were given 4% increases in each of the 5 years, so too did they not increase their pension contributions. They went from an 8% contribution per member to what will be 16% by the end of that 5-year contract. Why is that important? It is important because when you think about the pension obligation expense, 91% of what the city owes on the pension payment annually is what's called past service costs, based upon retirees. That has been doubly confirmed by the Supreme Court. That cannot be changed. It cannot be altered. That's a payment that we live with. The other component of pension payments is known as normal cost. Normal cost is known as the cost that it costs today to fund an employee today who's working for the city today, who one day will retire. The normal cost on average for the city of Providence for local 1033 is about 9.25%. They put in 8%. So they're funding most of their contribution. Previously, fire and police was funding 1/3 of their contribution, and the employer was funding 2/3. With this change in the fire contract, and a previous change in the police contract, and a commitment by the police union that they would, in their next contract, not contribute anything less than 15%. They're at 13.75 now. Both of those public safety units of workforce have taken the cost to the employee from 1/3 employee, 2/3 employer, to 2/3 employee, 1/3 employer. A significant change in the funding of the city's pension plan, and one that has been heralded and hailed by the city's public officials that they were headwind negotiations, and we believe it will continue with these contract negotiations over the next several months. So I wanted to share that with the members of the committee, so they will hear that. With that, Madam Chair, move on to employee benefits. For the purpose of the projection that we prepared, annual increases in active and retired medical costs are projected to increase by about 2% per year for the entire 5-year period. The city's pension contribution was based upon the Siegel July 1, 2020 actual evaluation, which includes the provision of the 2012 funding improvement plan, which was submitted to the Rhode Island Department of Revenue. For purpose of these discussions, employee benefits, the city is a self-insured managed plan for the benefit of your committee, Madam Chair, if I may give this information.
Please.
We do not purchase health insurance premium per se, as you would if you bought an insurance